Now call to order the regular council meeting of August 22nd, 2022. The time is 7 p.m. Opening prayer, Jamie.
All right. Let us pray. Lord, make us an instrument of your peace. Where uncivil words prevail, show us how to model love. Help us remember the God-given dignity of all and invite others to do the same. Show us how to build bridges and not walls, and see first what unites us rather than how we diverge. Let us seek to understand before asking to be understood. Give us listening hearts filled with empathy and compassion. May we be clear in sharing our own positions and respectful and civil in discussing those of others. Lord, help us to imitate your compassion and mercy. Make us instruments of your peace. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you please call the roll?
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member McCleister?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Schroyer?
Here.
Member Revolt? Here. Members Waring and Wyrick are absent, 5 present.
Motion to excuse members Werlick and Story seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no items for consideration tonight. Public speaks at this time. Members of the public wishing to address City Council may do so. Each speaker would be granted 5 minutes. Please begin by stating your name and address. Your time and rules will be posted on the screen. This will serve as a warning. Anyone wishing to address the public tonight?
Sue Platt, 801 Briar. After regularly attending council meetings for the last 8 years, I feel compelled to speak against the pending change to public speak. I have spoken at public speak on such topics as putting a monthly meeting calendar on the agenda and distribution of a newsletter at public expense that failed to even mention an upcoming special election. Those topics were not on your official agenda, would not be allowed under the proposed safety rule. When I voice suggestions at public speaks, it is because I want my comments on the record. And I want for all to hear my words, no misunderstandings. Under newly proposed rules, it is likely that not all council members nor the press would be present. In the past, when I have spoken to council members on an informal basis, off the record, later it was said, "Oh, I don't remember you saying that," or "I was never told that." I want my comments on the record. As leaders of the city, it is your responsibility to enforce rules of public speaks, not limit the public's comments about your work or limit their exercise of free speech regarding public business. Limiting public comments to your agenda only is an unnecessary infringement on the public's right to try to influence your future actions. I believe the public speech rules were reviewed and revised by the city lawyer within the last few years. No more revisions are needed, as the current system has worked well for citizens for many years. It was suggested that there could be an availability session where the public could speak informally to 2 or 3 council members before the meeting, but the press would probably not be there and comments would not be on the record. I can speak informally to council members through emails, text, and phone calls. I don't need an availability session before a council meeting. I could have emailed this prepared speech to council members, but I want my comments on the record. I must admit, during the last council meeting, I was glad that I was wearing a mask, which forced me to keep my mouth shut. My initial reaction was one of anger at some of the statements made. However, upon reflection, I feel the emotion was not anger, but disappointment. Disappointment in council members who would even consider taking my voice and the voice of other residents. Limiting comments to your agenda and being off the record is taking my voice. I encourage you to maintain public speaks in its current format without limiting voters' opportunity to voice their opinion to you on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
How long does that take me?
It was under 5.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Larry Tripp, 1127 East Maple, North Canton. It is truly amazing what you learn after a cursory review of council minutes. I did a review for the current year and found I could contradict every accusation that was thrown at me last week. Past minutes reflect constant interruption by councilpersons wearing a revolt during public speaks. It is not the citizens, Osborne and Tripp, causing chaos during council meetings. It is instead, it is the aforementioned councilpersons. Councilperson Stroya, I await your findings and reply on my alleged comments concerning patriotism and the $426,000 Bitzer Park grant. However, regarding last Monday's meeting, I find it challenging to understand why you allowed council members Orr and Warren to argue over attendance issue of some council members when the facts of attendance clearly speak for themselves per council records. On September 9, 2019, when I spoke on this problematic issue, I was labeled a sexist for doing so. Now, in 2022, you're allowing council to throw more labels to citizens. Councilmen Revolt and Warren have diagnosed citizens with Munchausen by proxy syndrome. We speakers have been called liars and described as purposely seeking to mislead citizens and intimidate them. As Mr. Revolt stated on January 24, 2022, this has to stop. I want to thank Mr. Wang for his timely and interesting article printed in the repository last week titled Residents Lashed Out Against North Canton Council Rule Change to Limit Public Input. In the comment section of this article, a subscriber writes, and I quote, "Wow, gobsmacked. North Canton City Council just seemingly wipes out the First Amendment to the Constitution. You pay your taxes, obey the laws in North Canton, but cannot even exercise your most basic of rights in North Canton meetings in all things that pertain to North Canton. Forget the endless D versus R political BS argument here and wake up, citizens. There is something far more serious and potentially dangerous going on here in this matter," end quote. Is this individual onto something? Are we seeing an organized effort to push for more negative rules through council chambers? Are we now seeking the real push for their 4-year council terms? You, along with the other 6 members of council, had every opportunity to meet with me alone with a state representative mediator concerning happenings within these chamber walls. The council refused to allow this mediation. Why was that? Now this council wants to move forward with a rule change to eliminate public speaks as we know it today. Please table this discussion to allow for a more comprehensive review of citizen versus council member violation of council rules. You will be amazed at what you might find. I would be happy to assist in any way possible. Eliminations of one privilege leads to the elimination of other privileges, and eventually you have the potential for a wrecked democracy within North Canton. In 1918, did the forefathers of New Berlin foresee the demise of Germany some 20 years later when they voted to change the city's name from New Berlin to North Canton? Now under your rule change, are we seeing the demise of democratic freedoms of speech? I hope not. Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to address the public tonight?
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. In December of 2001, when I was sworn in for my first term on North Canton City Council, I knew I would be guided well by individuals in the council office who were well-trained and highly experienced. Mary Louise Biddle was the former council clerk at that time and had 16 years' experience, having trained under former council clerk Marianne Wilson Barr, who herself retired with over 20 years' experience in the North Canton Council office. The council office at the same time also had Gail Kalpak as assistant council clerk, who had nearly 6 years' experience and who had her municipal clerk's certification from the Ohio Municipal Clerks Association. An individual's credentials for a position in the public or private sector are critical in any organization. It is not a personal attack when a citizen expresses an opinion on those credentials for the position one holds. I have learned a great deal about city government over the last 21 years. Last week, in my unprepared remarks to this council body, I spoke about Resolution 10/2020, passed November 23rd, 2020, which revamped the council meeting rules that were previously adopted under Ordinance 33/2013. That resolution had its origins in previous committee meetings, the latest going back to October 5th, 2020. I asked, why were you undertaking discussion on changing council rules in a virtual meeting when members of council could not personally attend, nor could citizens? The minutes of that meeting are alarming, and the entire discussion was on how to dismantle a government that has functioned perfectly for more than 60 years. Why was there no advising attorney present for this discussion? At last week's council meeting, I spoke of the need to adopt council rules in ordinance form and was rebuffed. Given my time constraints for these remarks, I will speak about ordinances and resolutions. USlegal.com states, and I quote, a resolution deals with matters of a special or temporary nature, whereas an ordinance prescribes some permanent rule of conduct for government to continue in force until the ordinance is repealed. It is to be noted that an ordinance can be repealed only by another ordinance and not by resolution. As is the case with ordinances, two separate bodies of state law define the process of adopting or vetoing a resolution, end quote. In the 2020 meeting minutes, then Councilmember Stroya introduced rules that he described as streamlined. This mindset is quite unsettling. Then the current council clerk stated, we are really, in essence, just decodifying the existing rules of council. And the reason to do this is it gives the legislature full or sole control over its own legislative process. So when the rules of council are codified, that means that if city council wanted to change its own internal processes, the mayor would theoretically have a veto, which would give him undue control over the legislative branch of government, end quote. Aren't checks and balances the backbone of our government for local, state, and federal levels of government? The council clerk continued stating, by decodifying the rules, we bring them completely under the authority of council, and we make them easier to change if council finds that something isn't working as they intended. Sounds like our council clerk wants our city council to function independently of any oversight. Rules of council should not be changed on a whim. Council rules are important legislation and require adoption in ordinance form. Past practices of North Canton city government, my 20 years of experience, my attorney with decades of municipal law experience, and the city's former 17-year council clerk have no doubt that council rules should be adopted in ordinance form. A resolution does not decodify a prior ordinance. An ordinance is repealed, not decodified. Council has been misinformed. The only way to repeal an ordinance is through another ordinance. What we see occurring in North Canton city government cannot continue. Maintain the rules of council outlined in ordinance number 33/2013 that is already on the books. With the few remaining seconds I have left, I again ask, where is my ward councilwoman. Why do we not ask their reason for absence? And then Mrs. Warren wants to argue about her attendance. Thank you.
Anyone else wanting to address public? Final call. Okay. Moving on to old business. Okay, can I have a motion and well, okay, we're gonna discuss Rule 9. This is where we're going to rename water, sewer, and rubbish as utilities. Is there any discussion on that tonight? Is there any concerns? Anything new?
Mm-mm.
I'm looking for a motion and a second to
Move
adopt.
we amend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Rule 14 and 18. This would combine those two as read. Any discussion on this?
And combined into Rule 14, correct?
Yes, correct.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Please be more specific.
I'll move that we strike Rule 18 and combine the text into Rule 14. That is my motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council, do we want to have discussion on Rule 17, or Rule 37 tonight, which would be item C? If you wish to discuss that, I will entertain discussion. We do not, we are going to vote to table this.
I'll make a
Till-
motion that we postpone consideration of the rule changes until we get response back from the attorneys.
There's a motion.
We have a
Second.
question. Hold on one
There's a
second.
question.
John?
So if we vote on tabling this at the next meeting of council the whole, will there be more discussion before we bring it back to council to vote?
Yes.
So we will table this till the next council the whole meeting, which is what, September 19th?
The 12th.
Well,
So we will vote to postpone this. to the
Wait,
12th.
yeah.
The point John's getting at is, are we going to talk about it at a committee
Yes.
meeting? Or will it
Yes.
come back next at a council
I think
meeting?
it should be discussed to the council the whole meeting before we even bring it to the council.
It's, as it sits right now, the motion is to bring it back to a council meeting on the 12th.
We haven't even seen anything written on this yet. And we're gonna go ahead and vote on it at the next council meeting. I think it needs to go to the council.
Committee of the whole.
You want to,
I do not agree with what you're saying, but
Dave brought the motion up.
I think the motion can stand. When we voted it out of committee,
We did.
we did not vote it out.
No,
of
is it a
committee.
council meeting?
That was first discussed in a committee of the whole.
Mhm.
Okay. I think the discussion can take place at the next council meeting. I think that city attorneys need to weigh in. I believe they have a couple of proposals to review. And at that point, we can take the information from the attorney. We can discuss the two proposals. We can either pass one or pass none at that time.
Well, can we, or
Yeah, you can.
two meetings
Yeah, you
of
can.
committee of the whole?
We have a committee of the whole meeting first. Discuss it. If you want to proceed, then you've got it as an agenda item in the back of the phone.
Does that follow the Roberts rules?
Yes. I don't think it does.
So you're proposing a committee of the whole, essentially a double up, the 12th. I mean, council, welcome to amend their meetings calendar. this will require at least two more vote. Last session, we did not make a motion to consider. So it will require at least two more discussions.
I just think we should, at this next scheduled committee of the whole meeting, be able to discuss this before it comes to council. We haven't heard from the lawyers yet. We don't know what they're gonna propose, and it's all gonna be already passed on the first, I don't see it.
So if on the 12th, we have a committee of the whole meeting followed by a council meeting, you'd be okay with that?
No, because we're doubling up on meetings, and I don't really feel we should double up on meetings.
I didn't think that we discussed rules of council at committee meetings. I thought they were actually traditionally done at council meetings. So Daryl, I mean, is that how they've been done in the past? I'm sorry?
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
That is something.
My
Yeah.
memory may be foggy, however.
Right.
Well, you heard what I have to say.
We're gonna have more than one reading of this anyway.
Yeah, but the first reading, we're gonna vote on something we don't even know what the
We've
law is.
already had a
Made it up.
We had a reading on it, but we
Yeah,
didn't even
might
get,
not. That's
we didn't
not
even have
necessarily
the,
true.
we didn't even
It's on the
have,
calendar tonight.
but we haven't even heard what legal has to say about it.
Okay.
I think we're making a mistake.
What part is the mistake?
I think we should discuss this. We've heard all negative about this public speaks from our public speak people. We've heard no positive. My phone's been ringing off the hook with people. You had said your phone has been ringing off. I've
You
heard,
haven't had anybody speak positively? about
no,
this?
I have not.
All right.
John, just a question. You voted on items 7A and 7B this evening, correct?
Yes, I did.
Those were not in a committee of the whole meeting either. We discussed that at a council meeting as well. And I think to the point that President Stroy is making, we are going to discuss this multiple times. We will have time to weigh in. I've gotten a few phone calls myself. They've been mixed. They haven't been necessarily one way or the other, for what that's worth. But I mean, again, we're going to have plenty of time to have input from the public if we're going to have two readings on this. So I don't know why we would, for me, I don't know why we would bring this up at a committee of the whole meeting when that's not traditionally what we do with rule changes for rules of council. Just my thought.
Okay.
The rules of council were not part of the committee of the whole meeting. They were discussed only in the council meeting. And I believe that we can discuss them. Do the rules require 3 votes? It's not an ordinance. It's merely a rule change.
The rules as written right now require 2 votes to amend.
2 votes.
So, for example, the change to Rule 9, last week you all voted to consider it,
Yes.
and then this week you voted yay or nay to adopt it.
Okay.
So last week, for this specific rule change, you all postponed and asked me to get drafts together, and
Yes.
those haven't come back yet from legal counsel. So it needs at least a motion to consider
Right.
before it.
So my
gets a
motion
final
stands.
vote.
We can discuss this in the council, the next council meeting, a full discussion, and decide whether or not we're going to move it forward to consideration.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Very good. Moving on to new business. Okay, so I have a motion to postpone item 8A.
Moves.
Let me rephrase that. I have a motion to postpone ordinance 56-2022.
Won't move.
All in favor?
Oh, we need a second.
Sorry,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, 8B, can I have a motion to postpone item 57-2020?
Won't moves.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion to postpone ordinance 58-2022.
Revolt moves postponement of 5822.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 59-2022. Story seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to release AMC Land Company Limited from performance bond obligations established by a commercial bond as authorized by ordinance 52-2021.
Okay, we discussed this in committee last week, or in regular council meeting last week. They've achieved their obligations and move that we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I have a motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 60-2022.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of North Canton to enter into an agreement with AMC Land Company Limited, thereby accepting its maintenance bond to guarantee certain maintenance improvements in the Monticello Phase 8 development.
Okay, this would be the one that establishes a new maintenance bond, and the collateral is the plat in Monticello, I believe, as well for that. Nothing new here. Any discussion on that?
A lot, not plat.
Oh, bond.
A lot is the collateral. You said the plat.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Have we ever done this in the past?
We currently hold a bond right now from the developer of Sanctuary, or that is secured by mortgage.
The lot is more than the.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Looking for a motion and a second for that.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Have a motion to postpone ordinance 61-2020.
Revolt moves postponement of 61-22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And can I have a motion to postpone ordinance 62-2022.
Revolt moves postponement of 62-22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Department reports. Deputy Director. Let's go with Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item I just keep on everybody's radar, that we'll be getting letters soon, I'd say in the next week or two, on the natural gas aggregation program. If you recall, just your quick history, that the provider that we had gone with last year, they filed bankruptcy. Had been a fair operator up till that point, I guess, but so we had to go back in and restart this program. So those that were on it have been kind of kicked over to the Dominion default position that they're under the state law, they're required to accept residents into their default program, and they can stay there indefinitely, or until the resident finds another program of their own choosing, or they wait for the city's aggregate program to come back. So I'm sure have all been following all the issues with natural gas around the world and how that affects natural gas prices here. And the rate, one of the rates I just saw this morning was 9.63 an MCF. The city bid theirs out a couple months back. I had set a target price to get to, and if we could hit that price, we would execute it. And that first price was $4.95. Never got to $4.95. Got close. So I bumped it up a little bit to $5.25 and held there, and we got that. So our rate's gonna be 5.25, and that's on a fixed rate, cannot change, 4 years. So I felt that was the best option for residents, I think, given the turmoil that we're seeing in the natural gas market because geopolitical conflicts and the like. They're already, rationing natural gas in Europe. And so I think that this would be a good thing for residents. Those of you that were in the program before, you'll have the ability to get in it. And if you don't want to get in it, you can opt out. Get in, and if you opt out later, there's no penalty to get out. So it's a good thing. So anyway, that word will be going forward here from the consultant. They'll be getting that word out of who it is and all this stuff, and we'll be glad to help any resident understand what they're looking at and that kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to bring a little bit of good news. I had the opportunity on August the 18th to visit a celebration for Compassion Delivered. It was their 5th anniversary of delivering meals to terminally ill citizens in our community, life-threatening illnesses. They've delivered over 20,000 meals in the last 5 years since they were born. And some of those meals do get delivered to our citizens here in North Canton. I just want to make a council aware of that, the good work that they're doing through volunteers and donors and corporate sponsorship. 20,000 meals in 5 years that they've been taking care of citizens in our community. And it was an honor and pleasure to present them a proclamation recognizing them for that. And I just want to share a bit of good news that is happening for our community. With everything else that's going on in the world, we still have caregiving in our community. So thank you for that moment to share with the City Council and our citizens here today.
Thank you. Gina?
No report.
Wayne? That's why you're sitting over there. Let's go on to, let's go with that. Sorry, you're hiding. Behind the monitor.
We got mail today from the Board of Elections. Charter members have been assigned issue numbers. They will be issues 12, 13, and 14. At this point, we need to review and approve ballot language. There was at least one issue that I found that will need to get addressed where they transposed 2 numbers. So we've been approved. We'll be on the ballot.
Let's go with department report. Council reports, Jamie.
All right, thank you very much. Actually, just had one item that I'd like to share is yesterday, I actually had the opportunity to join the mayor for the preview for the North Canton Youth Football League, and it was kind of an interesting how it came to be. My daughter's a cheerleader, and I think I was joking with the Pierponts about how we were going to be there all afternoon, and then there was a possibility that the mayor wasn't going to be there, and I said, well, I'll step in. Well, he ended up being there, and they passed me the microphone anyway. So, but I do want to share. I'm a guy who loves quotes, and I think this is something that is meaningful to me. I hope it was meaningful to the kids as I shared with them, as of course they're starting school today, to not only carry with them on the field but also in the classroom. But I certainly carry this with my job as well. So, there's a quote by famous football coach Lou Holtz. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. So it was meaningful to me. Hope maybe you guys find some meaning in that as well and carry that with you. And that's the end of my report. Actually, I will throw in there, if you see Holly and Chris, they do a fantastic job with that group and all the other coaches and the advisors. So, say thank you to them for a well-run program. So that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Jamie. David?
Okay, in terms of personnel and safety, this past week, it's a congratulatory meeting held. And one of the ways that you can tell a quality organization, government entity, is by length of service within its ranks and its members. And this past week, Chief Kemp was recognized for 25 years of service in the North Canton Police Department. And I think that's a testimony his commitment and service and moving up through the ranks here at North Canton. I just wanted to say congratulations to him. I know he's not present here tonight, but pass my congratulations on to him and the rest of the crew. Thank you.
Great. Moving on to Ward 4, John.
A lot of things happening in the ward. Thank you to the administration. Glenwood looks really nice. I think just about complete. I've had a few people call me up and say thank you. They weren't left out of their house or anything of that nature, which is great. I fielded a lot of phone calls about our public speaks possible changing. I addressed those, invited people into council, and you know, while you still have it, that's the way we go, you might as well use it. Most of them just feel it's, they're taking away their freedom of speech. We have a couple things. First of all, thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Mayor, for handling the football last night, the preview. That's always it's one of the top things in the city. It draws a lot of people out there, and I think they have over 300 kids participating, which is great, which is a great thing. That's about all, but thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you, John. Daryl.
Great. Mrs. Plant, I appreciate your comments tonight. Let me reiterate a couple of key points. First of all, is that 40 years ago when I started here in this council, and I may have said this before, public speaks was unlimited. Stood at the microphone, stated your name and address, the nature of business. As long as you weren't redundant, the floor was yours. Today, we're down to 5 minutes, and I've got an armed police officer here. Why is that? I think you did a nice job talking about your voice and the importance of it. And frankly, I wouldn't be here had I not gone to public speaks back in 2016. But I think also, in fairness, and I challenge some others, I think you've basically danced around the issue at hand. I think all of us in this room know what the issue is. And it's public speaks is, in my view, the trigger for other types of behavior that are simply unacceptable. And I can go into those at greater length if we need to, but tonight might not be the night. But I don't think anybody's, in a perfect world, I'd go back to 1981. Because you can speak as long as you want. You didn't need a police officer here to maintain order. It's just unfortunate we're here where we are. And the question is, how did we get here? So I'll await an answer from someone in the audience if they've got an insight into that. But frankly, the issue isn't on this side of the table. Mr. Tripp made comment about some comments I made. And I would simply point out that there is a term in English called a simile. Uses the words like or as. And I describe some of the conduct here around this room like political Munchausen's by proxy, where you're here to stir the pot, to gratify yourself. It's a simple thing. Simile, you can look it up. It's used. It's an English tool of comparison. As far as Mr. Osborne, he spoke eloquently tonight about our rules. The fact of the matter is, once again, I think the facts run in a different direction. The first says that all the rules have to be, he said, all that we have to have an ordinance. We do not. The sample rules of council proliferated by the Ohio Municipal Clerks Association. Imagine that. The Clerks Association own rules do not require codification. The rules don't exist beyond the term of the council. They expire. Question repealing it, they're done. And they can be replaced with either an ordinance or a resolution or a vote. All cities do it. All cities have codified their ordinances, their rules of council. All cities. Canton doesn't. Canton doesn't. Alliance doesn't. Misstatement of fact. I'm not sure that that helps our deliberation when opinion runs against or people simply misunderstand the use of the English language. That's my report.
You dare?
Oh, let me say this. I think we got better than calls. The people who collared me on the street and at the Y support the council's position to amend the rules. I had 2 emails, didn't get a response back after I explained the situation. Let me just wrap up with this. This will be it. Sue, I think what we have here, as I've said before, this is an issue of public safety. I won't go into the details tonight. I don't want to embarrass anyone. But again, the fact of the matter that we must have an armed officer and a strategy says something about the level of discourse. For a town of 17,500 people, that is really unfortunate. That gentleman should be in his cruiser on our streets.
One quick question. We live in a different society today. Is there not safety officers and police officers in our schools?
John, I would argue, fair question, I would argue that the reason that we have safety officers in the school is the same reason we have them here. Because there is a concern about behavior.
Or safety? The
Well,
safety
it is the, it is
because
the,
of
let me ask you a question. And I won't put you on the spot here. Do you want me to dot the i's and cross the t's about that behavior?
No.
Thank you. We're gonna do it at this time.
But we have police officers in places today that we didn't have 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years.
Because we have school shootings, and candidly, we have city council shootings as well.
Exactly.
Here's my point, though. There is nothing on an agenda, frankly. If you look at tonight's, for example, short of public speaks, even remotely controversial. And again, part of the problem is up here is that we have this sort of inability to determine what the facts are. And my appeal is this: get it right, get the facts, and that becomes the basis for good decisions. That don't misrepresent what's going on.
Well said.
I mean,
But, you know,
I get it.
President
Okay.
Scalia?
Yep.
Just a point of order.
Sure.
We have 2 citizens here, young people from Jackson High School, would it be permitted to allow them to have conversation on this topic?
We put that under old
Sure.
new business.
Let's do
Last call for business?
Last call for business.
Excuse me, I was out of order.
Final call for new business.
Okay.
Final call. Jackson High School.
It might be enjoyable to hear what our young people have.
Absolutely.
Point of view.
Podium,
Yeah.
name and address.
Mackenzie Miller, 721 Cuyahoga Street, Massillon, Ohio. I'm not from here. I'm from Massillon. This is my first time being at one of these meetings, but I'm agreeing with both sides of this. Because when we were in 7th grade, we had a school shooting and we went through that. And that caused a lot of panic for everybody. So I can see why we have police officers in our school, and thank you for your service. My family, military police, safety is a big thing, and after that big thing happened, it's good to have that because we still have that panic in our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Young man, your name and address?
Nathan Hung, 6060 Rose Avenue, North, Massillon, Ohio. I'm gonna have to agree with her, agree on both sides. It's just, that like ever since, I'm bringing up an old topic, but like the Columbine shooting of a high school, you know, that's when safety and everything kind of changed. I know you guys are bringing up that, you know, when did things become where we need an officer everywhere? It's just the fact that people nowadays are becoming more violent. And, you know, with the fact of, even though it's not really a topic, you can go into any store and just pretty much buy a weapon. Nowadays, safety is becoming more of a hazard. And which is why we need this officer here, which thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I mean, anything could happen. Like she said, like, you know, 7th grade, we were in school, everything was fine. We could have been a shooting. It's just the fact of nowadays we need more protection because we don't know what could happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. My mom was a music teacher at Jackson, and she wasn't there that day, but I was in a meeting in Texas for work, and it was a little bit of panic. So,
So
Yeah.
he's the one that saved me from when we heard the drum.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for holding a respectful tone, everybody, today. I am thankful. Baker Court Street, if you have been down, that's the alley behind that intersects the Y. What is that? Coming down Bitzer, right? Yeah.
mhm,
Is there back?
Phenomenal. Yeah.
mhm.
If you haven't been down that, what an amazing job.
Proof of concept,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I
Right?
mean, dead on.
All in-house.
Yeah.
just for the students and those who are here, the administration proposed to council last year in the budget, the purchase of some fairly expensive equipment to be used for spot paving. Just for people who aren't familiar with the alley, because I park next to it at the Y, our crew ground out the alley and then repaved it with the equipment that we had purchased. And as the team said, this was a learning experience. It looked just as good as the full-time professionals do. And it actually improved the appearance of the alley a bit too, which was a little rough.
Yeah.
Certainly
So
was.
Patrick, kudos to the crew who did it. Looked
So
good.
what did that save us? We would have had to go to an outside contractor,
Um,
you would say.
Had we contracted that out, and that'll be the difficult thing when doing these alleys, is finding somebody that wants to do it. Because sometimes they're in tight places. Baker Court was not necessarily a tight place, but you can imagine some of the shorter alleys that it could be problematic to even get a contractor to want to do it, and then they want to do it, then the price is significantly higher. But if we were to bid Baker Court out, that's probably a $40,000 job. Grind it and repave it. So that's just one of a couple that we've done, and we're going to continue to do more yet this year. So I appreciate the council doing that, and then we, as part of that cleanup, had our code enforcement look at that alley, and there were a number of properties that were not compliance, and so they got into compliance. And they were happy about it at the end of it, because they got a new alley out of it. They appreciate the spruce up, so thanks to council for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, I did want to mention, thank you to Officer Kemp, 25 years of service. Just doesn't seem that old, does it? I don't know. I wonder, I'd make fun of him more if he was here. Maybe just realize or relay our sentiments and I'll pass it along. Maybe make a joke of some sort. Really, that's all I've got. I support local and,
We need to mention meetings.
yes, review the meetings calendars. So on the 29th, we have no meeting. On September 5th, Labor Day, no meeting. Coming back to September 12th, we'll have a regular city council meeting. September 19th, we'll have committee of the whole meeting, and September 26th, we'll have a regular council. That being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
You need a second.
Yeah,
Oh,
good
second.
point. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sure.